husband said I was paid to lie and turned our life into living hell, so I got him arrested. I'm 30 and my spouse is 35. About 2 months ago, he started acting differently. Since then, it kept getting stranger. He said an old email with an inheritance was hacked, though he hasn't used it in the 12 years I've known him. He claimed everyone was talking about him and that I was in on a plan to hurt him. He asked what show we were on and how much I was paid to keep secrets. He said I took secret calls and came back crying, which never happened. When I told him none of it was real, he said I was lying and bad things would happen if I didn't tell him the truth. We have 2 very young kids. I once got him to the hospital. He wasn't seen by a doctor, was told to take something to sleep and sent home. He smokes grass and wouldn't stop. He stopped showing up to work, kept going to the police station to file reports, and got fired. His job called a wellness check. Police came. He said he'd never hurt anyone, only defend himself. After that, he either yelled for answers or ignored me, and neither felt safe. One warm day, I asked him to walk with the kids. He barely spoke. At a playground, I asked if we should let them play. He snapped that I always control everything and called me queen of the decisions. I said he could choose. He said, do whatever you want. I pushed the swings. He threw stray balls around. He sailed a football past me. I asked why. He said, it didn't hit you. Then added, if I wanted it to hit your head, I'd make sure. He ranted about lies, then sat alone at the edge of the park. I packed up and said we were going home. He took a different route, met us near our street, and scolded me for not listening to him. He wanted to fight. I said I needed a coffee. He said fine. I said I'd take the kids. He questioned why, then buckled them in himself. He climbed into the passenger seat and told me to drive. I said I didn't want him coming because he was being mean. He said he could be meaner. When he started on the same talk, I said I didn't want to hear it. He shouted at me to drive and be quiet. I pulled over and told him to get out. He drew back his fist like he'd punch me, then slammed his own hand right in front of my face. I cried and told him to get out. He refused and said if I drove him to the police, he'd choke me out before we arrived. The kids were in the back. I begged him to stop for their sake. He told me not to bring them into it. They were right there. I drove home shaking. He asked how long I'd planned to leave and who I was replacing him with. I said there was no one. He mocked me in a high voice about taking me to the station. He went outside to smoke. I sat with the kids and wrote everything down because I didn't know what else to do. We own 1 car in both our names. We rent from my mom, so no lease. Both IDs list this address. He hadn't always been like this. I missed the person he used to be, so I changed what I was doing. I started collecting proof. For days, I set my phone to record whenever he walked into a room. On Thursday, he finally spoke more than a few words. He demanded to know who I was talking to and who was trying to ruin his life. When I didn't answer, he said, I want to hit you, and don't make me slap you. I captured it. That night, I locked myself and the kids in our room. The next morning, he insisted on driving me to work. I wanted the car. He said he needed it. After dropping the kids, he started calling me names and said I was hiding his inheritance. I pressed against the far edge of the seat and told him to focus on the road. He grabbed the back of my neck, pulled me toward him and told me to listen. I froze and said, please drive. He let go. At my job, I told him he needed help and went inside. I called my boss. She came in, canceled her day, and took me to the police. The first sergeant tried to talk me out of filing, saying he might end up homeless. I said my safety and the kids' safety came first. Another officer took my statement. They told me to stay away from the house. 5 hours later, they arrested him. With the info I gave, they took him to the hospital on a 30-day psychiatric hold. There would be charges for making threats and assault, but since he had no record, it would likely be light. I changed the locks and finally slept. For a while, things looked better. He got treatment, switched to a regular shot instead of pills, and stopped using grass. He talked like himself, found a job, and was an engaged dad. A major stress event less than a year before all this had forced us out of our home for a while. I won't give details, but it shook us. I thought maybe that plus heavy grass use had pushed him into a break, and that with steady care we'd be okay. I let myself hope carefully. Almost a year later, the cracks showed. He skipped the shot. The same talk about the email and the show came back. When I told him the story in his head wasn't real, he put his hands on my neck and squeezed. I broke free and called for help. He was removed from the house. I got a protection order for me and the kids. We haven't heard from him since. The kids sleep through the night again, and I still check the doors twice.